All right, welcome to another Talent Grind Live, Mr. Alex Mann. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, Mr. Doran. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I'm trying to stay focused. I'm wearing Bolt hoodie today in honor of Ryan Breslow coming back as CEO of Bolt this week.
I
I'm just
saw
gonna,
that. I saw that on the Twitter sphere. I saw
oh
that.
yeah, I'm just gonna go on the record here. There's been a lot of anti-Breslow and anti-Bolt hate over the last couple of years, and I've been quiet because I worked with them when they were at 15 people. I saw how smart they are. I'm betting on Bolt. I think he's going to come
Um,
back. I think he's going to crush it.
yeah, my understanding is that there's just the finagling of financial stuff that I guess people had. Anyone can Google it. It'll be
It
like the
appeared that it
first
was a
thing.
loan. They've got it. They've got it cleared up,
Yeah,
and they're ready to move
exactly.
in the
That's what I
future.
thought.
And then he even mentioned something about building kind of almost like a WeChat all-in-one type of app, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah,
They've got 85 million shoppers in their network. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at.
but no, it's not. And ultimately, it is a great redemption story for him if he can pull it off. And like, how many people work there now at this stage? Are there still over 100 people there? There be?
That's a really good question. Let's go check Sales Navigator and see how much it says that at what they're at. Let's see here, people. So it's got 740 associated members, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's active employees. It's saying 740 total employees.
Yeah, so it's still a serious operation. So yeah, it's
They raised $11 billion in funding. That gives you a lot of powder and a long way to go.
yeah, that's an insane amount of capital, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's really important for people to understand if they're not inside companies building technology that you have to really listen to everything with one ear and look with both eyes, right?
Yeah.
I remember at one point we had a happy hour and we were celebrating. They walked us through. They had hit this threshold in terms of friction for the one-click checkout,
Yeah.
and it was almost right in alignment with what Amazon could deliver.
Yeah, the
Right.
promise was phenomenal.
Right. Like I learned so much working at Bolt. My whole services business came out of Bolt. Even the desire to build an inclusive platform came out of my work at Bolt. Like I now own the top of the funnel in recruiting in a way I've never have. And it all really, I kind of consider Bolt my finishing school. They are just super smart, really good people, building a really good product. And people make mistakes, especially when you're in your early mid 20s.
Yeah.
But you learn from them and you move on and you try to be a little humble. And Ryan admitted that he made mistakes and he showed some humility. I'm very positive.
It seems you are. You have no shame in wearing the hoodie, which I think
No shame in wearing the hoodie. And I'm not
like
wearing this
I
ironically like
always
the
had.
fast hoodie last week, right?
Yeah, that was the ironic hoodie. So it's
And
nice
even
to
if you look behind me, that blue painting on the wall, they had designers at Bolt and they would have a happy hour at the office every week. And they would actually print out posters that they would put up on the wall. And that is one of the posters for the new Bolt's new office. And I liked it so much that I actually framed it and I hung it
Where
on my
was the
wall.
office?
It was when they moved down by Market Street. So we were out by the Mission. I went through two different. We started on Howard, and this kind of little one that I'd visited years before for another startup, which is really always funny when you're in the same place twice. And then
Yeah.
they moved to another place down by like a coffee shop that was still cruddy in the Mission, just down from the federal courthouse. And then they
Yeah.
moved down by Market Street.
Howard has LinkedIn, so at least it depends what part of Howard you're on. But yeah, no, interesting times for them and interesting times for that company. And I guess just interesting times in general. I feel like, it's a very fascinating time to be in talent acquisition.
You
I
sent me
mean,
some interesting information to look
yeah.
at.
Is every recruiter expected to be? I know everyone's busy today, but is everyone expected for a couple 100,000 more people going into the market in the next like month?
The sad part is that it's only certain industries that are going to pick up those federal workers, right? Like
Yeah.
most likely are not going to go into technology. They'll most likely go into government consulting and maybe other areas of consulting, I would guess, due to access and networks. And going back to the theme over the last few messages, which are live streams with you, is that the future is business relationships.
Yeah. read your email that you sent, your summary email of our call from last week. And it was interesting because I think that was the exact takeaway from it. I was like, look, at the end of the day, it's your personal brand and it's building your relationship. Like if we're in such uncertain times and really none of us have a crystal ball and it doesn't, the vibe, what did Gerald Ford say back in the day? The State of the Union is not good. I
Yeah.
feel like the State of the Union is not good.
It's not good.
And what can you do to insulate yourself as best as possible?
So I did an
Like,
experiment this week. I don't know if anybody's watching this right now, but if you are, go check out my LinkedIn feed. I put a link to join Alex and I on Talent Grind Live. Feel free to click it and I'll see you come in and come on in with your questions. So I thought I'd do a little iteration here, Alex. I
yeah,
just said everybody to come
I'm
in.
here for
I
these.
think maybe we'll start doing that, allow people to come in and talk with us. And that'll kind of give us some variety and allow you and I to riff with somebody else. I've been talking a lot the last few ones. I'm really curious, Alex, you're talking to a lot of recruiting leaders. You're really putting yourself out to the market. I'm really curious about what you're hearing and what you're seeing and what people are sharing with you.
Yeah, I recorded a podcast this morning and with a CEO of a engineering offshoring business. And I was asking him, I was like, because I mean, at the end of the day, like the way I would never want to make this podcast political, but the obvious sort of governmental approach to reshoring manufacturing and everything else is very much priority numero uno, clearly, given all the myriad of tariffs that I feel like we hear about every day.
Yeah.
Good luck having a pint of Guinness with a 200% tariff. But,
I'm
but
so glad it just
like,
doesn't affect me at all. It's great.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're good. You're fine.
Yeah.
But we're talking offshoring, and it's like how that has just evolved, and not just like from a COVID perspective that like people all went remote, and it's here we are. But the cost of engineering, the cost of talent is just still so expensive that it feels like this founder was super bullish on like their performance, that they were growing like crazy, really because people are looking for talent, but it feels like American-based engineering talent is very
Well,
too highly priced. And I guess that's
well,
something within your remit because you
did,
interview
did
for
you
that all
hear
the
what
time.
Dario from Anthropic said this week?
And that came up in the podcast, which was what? 80% of the world's code will be written by AI in the next 6 months. Is that the quote you're referencing? Yeah.
Within 12 months,
Yeah. Yeah.
100% of code. So it's so interesting because I've been building a platform for 4 years. And when we started off, like we had a 4-person engineering team. And then the economy hit, the services business suffered. I had to lay everybody off. And I was always looking forward to hiring back. But I've had people reach out to me offering me free help doing data science and different stuff as an intern who want to get involved with what we're doing. And I throw it to the engineering team and they're just not interested. They're like, this person's going to slow us down. We know what we're doing. And especially Tim is putting our entire code base in Gemini now. And we're getting really serious about thinking about what our AI strategy is going to be. We're going to buy our own hardware and we're going to host an LLM into our product so that we can give those features away for free, at least to some extent. You know what I mean?
I
So,
think you
because we don't really, with AI, we just need a couple people who really know the code base and what the product roadmap is and where we want to go. And that's really what we need.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. You used the phrase we're designing our own AI strategy. I
Yep.
think I think that's like the thing here. Like I think if you were like JP Morgan or you were like a Nike, some distributed 100,000 person business, there's a huge difference between them having an AI strategy or lack thereof, and you, Mr. Doran, having one where you can build it from the ground up and
Mm.
how we think about what hiring looks like between that. I think ultimately, like those companies will never be able to retrofit their organizations to truly have an AI strategy. It's just not possible. You know what I mean? Zuckerberg could do it because he's like the sort of king savant of that business. You know what I mean? And he can wield that kind of level of intellectual power over the company. Whereas I don't see that happening in like a JP Morgan or in like a Vodafone or something where they have all this collection of data. But I think like when it comes to the hiring of talent, like in that sense, then I like just like the way I say it about recruiters, I don't think recruiters are going to be replaced. I just think that there'll be less jobs for bad recruiters in a way that there'll be less jobs for bad coders. I imagine that like with coding, for example, that like where you are with engineers, they still have to spend a lot of time doing the strategy of
That's
like
most of it. That's most
that's
of it.
what's it,
It's
which is
it's the
exactly what we say
research,
about recruiters.
thinking, the strategy, working with Claude, asking it questions, diving in. Like, we just found out that they completely redone TypeScript and Go.
I
Did
honestly
you
don't know
hear
what
about
Go
that?
has.
So
I
TypeScript was built by Microsoft.
okay, I know what that is.
So the fact that they rebuilt the back end, so they rebuilt the back end of TypeScript in TypeScript. And so there would be like a 1 to 2% kind of bugginess and variance because of this factor, like
Yeah,
on the back end. And so they built it in Go instead of Rust or Erlang or some of these. And
yeah.
Go was built by Google. So like, it's funny because like when you get to the hardcore computer scientist technologists, if you look at what they're doing, they're really enabling a world where there's not as many huge corporations, I think.
Oh, this is literally what we spoke about probably in episode 1,
Yeah,
where you said
yeah,
it's gonna be less like, there's not gonna be 1,000, 10,000 person businesses. There's probably more likely gonna be 10,000, 1,000 person people businesses, which I know sounds like a mouthful, but I think anybody who's actually listening to this will probably understand what we say. Compare your bottoms up approach to building your business versus what JP Morgan would have to do to top down to do the
yeah.
same thing. Like, it's far less likely that they're able to do that than it is you being very likely to be able to build upwards a very distinct strategy for AI implementation across your organization,
Yeah,
and hire appropriately for it.
so it's really interesting, man, because I see other people in the recruiting space. There's one person in particular, they built a business over about 10 or 11 years. They got started before me. They got the right connection. They have some private equity money behind them. They're trying to make big moves in certain areas, but they're buying disparate systems and they're trying to put it together into a super company.
Yeah,
And that
like every
strategy,
HRIS business base.
yeah, it's just they're buying different components. They bought kind of one back office functions. I don't want to be too specific here because I like this person. I just don't disagree with his strategy. Like I think there's a point to maybe a golden zone of when you should start a business. And it's for me, it's like 35 to 50. Like, I think that's when you should found a business. When you've got a subject matter expertise in an area and you've got a particular point of view and you have a particular voice and you've been around long enough to know what's good and what's bad and you've seen some stuff. Right? Like all
Yeah.
the problems that I see in startups are because the people running them are young. Like I've been putting out this week, I was a little snarky about a post about Mercor. As I said, it's
Uh,
just another group of 22-year-olds who are gonna completely reinvent recruiting, and they're gonna take rent, and they're gonna kick us all out of the job, and, like, these guys with all this money, like,
I actually am going to stop you there, okay? And I'm going to ask you on the topic of Mercor.
yeah,
What's your spicy take on what they're building after all the money they raised?
they're trying to automate so much of the process, and I think that it's just I think there's 2 different viewpoints in technology. There's the super hyper efficiency, automating as many elements out of it as possible and taking a bigger piece of the pie for yourself. It's what I'm reading right now is finite versus or the infinite finite versus infinite games, the Simon Sinek thing.
Okay.
I'm reading that book right now. And what Merker's trying to do is a finite game, right? Like it's zero sum to them. What I'm doing is an infinite game. Right? Like I'm building a community as a moat. I'm giving away knowledge. I'm giving away technology. I'm trying to get people thinking about getting back to building relationships. I'm trying to be a leader and serve by example by saying, if I can come out and start doing all this social media content stuff, like you can do it. I'm sorry. I'm not the biggest fan of doing this stuff, but it's critically important. Going back to another conversation we had about you've got to have personal branding uh,
Yeah.
as part of your business toolkit now, it's absolutely essential. You've got to do it.
But there's been promises of AI matching of talent to the right jobs forever. I feel like that's been a promise that
Mm.
I've seen every ATS, everything promises to every marketplace promises to match the best candidates. Why do you think? Mercor was able to pull off so much capital. We're not talking about chump change here. We're talking like $100 million. So what is it? Is it the slap, the kiss of gold of AI in their like URL kind of thing? Or is it like, what do you think was the thing that like really got them over the top for this? Because it is interesting. And I say this from the perspective of, I don't really have a dog in that fight, but I'm like, my sort of perception of it is like they're a data labeling business effectively for interviews. And it's just ingesting engineering interviews, tagging it all basically to get a feel for like what it like engineering candidates, like that they'll have a read on what are the best candidates or what people look for.
Yeah, so
I don't see
they
that
might
as like
they might
I don't see that
surface
as something that
candidates
you
at
would
the
give a
right
shit about.
time the most efficiently, but
Well, yeah,
they are still just a sliver in the overall process.
exactly. There's a exactly, that's what I mean. I think they've got that sourcing, like, insights into sourcing of
So they're
engineering.
college I looked up on Google, they're college dropouts and triple Theo fellows who met through high school debate. I think that there are very bright young people
Yeah.
who have figured out that if they say these things and they do these things and they have this look and they can get the attention of these people, that they have, like, basically a pathway up into success. And I would say Theo Fellows is one of those. They're not great people. I'm not talking negatively about them at all, but I've been around 22-year-olds who've been given $1 billion before. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and from the inside, and as a consultant, I'm not asked for my opinion, so I keep it to myself, but I see a million mistakes being made that maybe, and then I also see a lot of innovation, right? Like Breslow was pushing the 4-hour work week 4 years ago. He came out with the Conscious Culture, which is a great website. Like it's a really good way to build a business, right? And it's another critical factor that I think the naysayers don't really take into consideration.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. What I struggle with about the Mercor thing is their math you do a 20-minute screener, AI screener thing. Like, I wonder who the clients are, because to be able to do millions in revenue, like, building those kinds of platforms, like, as sure as it landed, that was millions of dollars in revenue, and let me tell you, that was blood, sweat, and tears to get it to that point. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I am so curious as to how they've achieved that. It's a phenomenal success for them to have millions of dollars in revenue to get to the point to raise
Yep.
100 million. But like to that point, I'd be curious to see how it plays out. It's definitely, I'd barely even heard of them
But
before.
the thing is that it's not the newest I've seen this over and over.
Yeah.
There was hired, like Brett Adcock sold veterinary curated content or like curated databases of top talent that you're selling access to companies to,
Yeah.
and putting a GUI on the front end of it. And you're right, like I hate that I said there 3 times in a row. Anyway,
Okay.
I just I see efficiency hitting a certain wall. But human yeah, never discount human behavior. Like, I've got a degree in human development, and human beings will not always do what you expect them to do.
Yeah.
They'll rebel. I see rebellion against AI already, even as it gets better. I think people
In
still
recruiting.
use it in business.
Interesting. Why do you think that?
I think AI killed cold email outreach.
Not if you ask me, but that's just me
Well,
and
let's
my
hear your perspective.
you
Right, because
know,
I tried it for an entire year for a company, and I got no responses from my cold outreach, and I consider myself pretty good at messaging and even working with AI,
yeah,
really dialing it in. So
yeah.
what's working? What's working?
Yeah, I think part of the problem with AI is that it sounds like AI. And I think when it comes to the magic of personalizing cold outreach, I think people can sniff it a mile away. And I'm honestly like, if you could write an email that's cold outreach in less than 50 words, do you know what I mean? And if you can get that down to 30 words and you can get that down to 10 words, then that's what you need to be doing.
Okay, so
Not like,
you're doing the busy executive brevity method.
yeah, but I also like it's interesting. I test a lot of things. Like what I always tell people in cold email is give people value.
Sure.
Like give them something. Like, hey, I created this and I thought that you would be interested in it. And then you're not putting any links in the email because no human sends links really to other people. You're like down to chat. So it's if you expect performance like PLG or whatever from an email, you won't get it.
Mm.
But if you can send value, how I started the podcast, like I've told you before, is
The
it was a cold
3,000.
email experiment. You know
Yep.
what I mean? That's what that was. Like it wasn't like I had a goal to have a podcast. Like it was a goal to test the efficacy of like outbound email in that. And there was barely AI generated. So now I've far more evolved like how I think about it. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I don't think I think as the cold email's been poisoned, the narrative around cold email has certainly been poisoned by AI. And there's definitely pushback from loads of different companies on like how to use it and how to use data in terms of service and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's still a valuable channel. And I definitely think that every single company should have at least 10 to 15 domains with about 3 to 5 email accounts associated per domain. So whatever that fucking number is, that could be three. Let's just say that's like you have 100 inboxes. You can send 50 emails a
Do
day.
they each need to have their own VPN?
No,
So what about IPs? Don't they all need one?
doesn't affect it. No, no. I do want to stress that I'm not it, but in my sort of like checkbox of you need to do your DMARC and all these other random things, like VPN isn't in there. And as if you're not annoying, if you write something that like annoys people, that's for I think that account deserves to get banned. But I don't have anything that's broken in any of the outbound that we've done in
So, but you're
months.
required to develop some type of collateral then to send to them, right?
Yeah, but that's something that would be interesting. Here's a good thing. I had breakfast yesterday morning with an Irish kid who's over here at a J1. And he was like asking me for advice. And he was asking me for I want to get a job in tech kind of thing. And I'm like, I'll take you for breakfast. You're a kid. And one of the things he was like, I don't know really where to start. I don't want to go on LinkedIn because every job is over 100 applications within seconds. And I'm like, welcome to the meme that is applying for a job, my friend. And I was like, if you why don't you go to work at a startup or .com or go to Wellfound, you'll find like the kind of YC kind of style companies that are like probably hiring. Okay, start there. And they always have the hiring manager or the CEO on the actual JD. So then just go on their LinkedIn and go on their Twitter and look them up and go look for a tweet that they wrote 6 months ago and try to parlay that into your email. And I can tell you that 1 and 2 will reply to that email because you'll have spent time actually looking them up when you're looking to get you in that company. And I'm like, an AI can't really do that for you. You know what I
So
mean?
a
To really
completely
like,
manual process then.
I mean, you got to
That's the
niche this
pro
stuff
tip of the
down.
week.
Yeah, AI isn't for everything. I'll give you an example. I'm looking today to like, I get leads and I get signups. And I'm like, okay, I need to know how many recruiters work at that company. So let's just say, Michael, okay, you come to me from Bolt with a Bolt email address, okay, and you sign up for Ellie. I don't care that you're both a 700-person business. It has nothing, that number, when people talk about scale of company, that means nothing to me versus knowing how many recruiters are at, say, at Bolt. So I need to figure out a way of if somebody signs up that I'll be able to feed that number, be able to query it enough to know, well, give me a ballpark figure of the number of recruiters so that if it's above a certain number or threshold, it will go to certain people within the organization. That is where Clay and AI or whatever tool you want to have in the middle can be very powerful because you can have the OpenAI read their LinkedIn or whichever and be like, okay, that company's LinkedIn. Okay, that we see that there's whatever number of people and we extract within that number of people within that company, how many have the title of talent acquisition or HR or recruitment within that title, benefits people. And that way, then you're able to send it to the right person because then you can pull out the job title and be like, okay, we now know that this one person who signed up, there's probably 10, 15 other people within the org that are probably likely to be potentially users of this. We need to like tier one, P0, P1, P2, this account. You know what I mean? So,
Mm.
like, otherwise, a salesperson or somebody who's managing, say, that inbound is going to have to literally,
So it sounds like the inbound signal is the really key part in your process.
I would say, for everyone's process.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you've gotta pay for an inbound signal is essentially to get very serious about it and to take it to that next level.
Oh, I mean, everything has to be taken seriously. Man, when people post on LinkedIn that tags me or that tags, say, Ellie, I'm like literally looking at that daily or like every other hour going, who are the people that have a job title that I think would be interested? Am I going to reach out to them and say, hey, buy my stuff? No. But if you reach out to people and say, hey, thank you so much for engaging with this content. I really appreciate you seeing this post or whatever. That's just the door open. You're
Mm.
not asking for anything. You're just being nice. They're connected with you on LinkedIn now. And when you continue to post the content, as we were talking about earlier, and your quote unquote like personal branding, those people will be exposed to your content going forward. So it's like everything is an opportunity for a sale. It's just like how soon or how down the line do you want that to happen? You take a podcast. Like a podcast, I would never, ever suggest that my podcast is a sales podcast. If for ever
Yeah.
a talent acquisition podcast with the ultimate goal of getting a sale, I would never admit that either just like personally or even here publicly. I look at it as an amazing content opportunity. If somebody is interested because of that podcast to learn more, well and good. You know what I mean? But I do try to keep it like church and state. But like it does have that amazing ability where people are like, oh, actually, I'd love to learn more about that business. Your business actually. It's cool. Let's make it happen. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But it's like they're kind of like, that could take 6 months to close a deal. So if you were actually a salesperson, you'd be like, what's the point of that? That's 2 quarters. This is no way anybody would spend that much time in it. Versus, oh, somebody clicks an ad and they come to your website. You're like, gotta close them like right now. This is all very unsolicited sales advice for everybody who's potentially listening.
I think this is great. I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot listening to you. Like, I just talked to someone yesterday, actually, and like, I suck at sales at the top of the funnel. Like, I
You
own
totally
recruiting.
you make so much content.
I own recruiting at the top of the funnel. I own it. But
Yeah,
sales
but
at the
that
top of
that
the
is your
funnel?
sales. You're man, I love your content. I think it's so good.
Thank you. I'm wondering
As
if
we're
it's too
all
much, but I know you just have to keep feeding the beast.
just man, we're too old. That's what I find so funny about this. You gotta pay the piper, feed the beast, but
You
like,
got to.
come on.
Okay, I'm literally the other day sitting down with my 12-year-old daughter. We're just kinda hanging out across the table. I look it up her. I'm like, "Do you know what I do for work now? Basically a full-time content creator."
Yeah,
And
like,
so, like,
oh, fuck
all my
me
day is, like,
too.
making videos with people, editing them, creating clips, scheduling things, monitoring LinkedIn, full-time
Yes.
content creator.
And the payoff, and like we say, like all the time, the payoff for the content is not today, it's not tomorrow. The payoff is like in July. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that, like going from 10 likes on a post to 15 to
yeah,
25
got it.
to averaging like 30, 40, 50. And it's just, I'm not a big believer in following the trends in the platform. Like,
Me neither.
yeah, it's just like gaming it, whatever. Like, I'm not here to game it. It's not like you want to game, like gaming attention on something like LinkedIn, I think is just, I would almost use the word crass. Like, these are professional kind of contexts. It's no, you just want to provide value. Like,
Yeah,
that's literally it. Like, your email that, like, I say this genuinely. I read that email and I was like, this is actually really good. I was like,
yep.
this is a great summary of the chat. But you kept referring to me as my friend Alex in the email, which did crack me up. I was like,
You are
really?
my friend, Alex. The funny thing is, just so people know, like, I download from this Restream, I put into Descript.ai. I take out all of the filler words. I listen to it once on 2 times speed. I kind of fine tune it. And then once I get that, I just start making clips off of that, download all those, and then I'm done. And then you can just go post it. You don't need to pay someone to do it. It doesn't need to
No.
look it doesn't need to look super perfect.
Yeah. And that's your content ready. And then you use a bit of Claude or whichever to help like figure
Yeah,
out like a
you
bit of the
take
content.
the script will give you the transcript. You take the transcript. I've already got my talent grind project on Claude is 85% full. Because I also found I could download my entire Substack with all my stats and I
Yeah.
upload it into Claude into the project. So it has all of that data and context too.
It's using that context to inform the sort of content that you're
Well,
producing.
yeah, the problem is that I've got 19,400 followers on LinkedIn and I've got 300 on Substack.
Yeah.
So we need to try to hopefully get some of these people over in Substack because that's where I'm doing the long form content,
It is. Yeah. And then obviously
right?
you
That's
can
where you can
monetize
really
that
get
as
to
well.
know me more. That's where we've got
Yeah.
a chat community that we can all talk with each other. Like I've got a LinkedIn group on LinkedIn too. It's really hard getting people to talk.
On Substack or on LinkedIn?
It just and anywhere in chat. It's interesting. It seems like the political ones are the most active, but I don't really wanna do that, but it's the business. People don't talk. I don't know why.
Yeah, I
Like, they
I
do in
think
other communities. I can't figure out other communities like xoobler.com or what's the People GPT, which is like this elite, like, HR and recruiting type of one. Like, people are talking all the time. I don't know. If anybody out there has any tips, ping me about how to get
yeah, I
people
mean,
to talk.
I would say I am not a community expert.
That's the hard one.
Yeah, I actually have a call with somebody to discuss it. This girl who was the community lead at Apollo.io, and I'm like, "Oh, you have a business now. You help people figure out how to do this." I'm like, "I would like to have a chat. I would like to have a chat because I can see the value in it for us, and I can see like LinkedIn for Daddy is like obviously like that's you want to
It's
play in the
everything.
Super Bowl, that's like the place. So it's like, okay, cool. So yeah, we have a ton of different content coming now over the next 3 months that is going to be subversive to the platform. Is probably a way of putting it.
Great.
And
Are you
yeah,
taking a Richard Branson approach there? You're
we're
gonna make a splash?
taking we're taking a unique approach to LinkedIn. And frankly, I'm excited for it
Oh, I
because
can't
I
wait to
know
see it.
I'm speaking really vaguely here, but like I say it in the sense that my take on LinkedIn, just I don't know, at a public high level, is that I think LinkedIn is the most boring, cringy, embarrassing state of affairs for content. And it they have designed an algorithm that rewards utter nonsense on the platform. And when I say rewards utter nonsense, if the same people pop up all the time because they're clearly posting and like, I've gamed that algorithm in terms of the structure, the kind of style of the video, but it's all style, no substance. And I'm like, no, if that's the game that you're playing in, play a different game on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? Like, how was rugby invented? Rugby was invented in a game of soccer, and they picked up the ball and ran. That is how the game was invented. And so it's the same thing with LinkedIn. I just am like, I don't know. I feel like there's a real lack of coherence when it comes to the feed on LinkedIn. And I'm like, dude, like, if I want to see recruiting content, just show me the recruiting content. Isn't that the point? You know what I mean? If you're in that space, and you wanna see it good, and I feel like they just struggle with a lot of innovation in that feed product, in a way that, like, Facebook or Instagram has never had that problem. You know exactly what you're getting into when you're on those platforms, and I'd like to see just a bit of realness. Like, gotta pick you up again here, Michael. That post you put up there the last day where you were like, is what you said, "I'm sick of it, I'm sorry," whatever, the one you said that you're, "I wanna need to get something off my chest." For those listening, for those here, like, great post, give it engage. But I was like, yeah, that's the kind of shit that needs to be more on the platform. Not that I'm saying that I need to hear
I
about the
just
struggles,
think in
but it's
general,
just
the thing that Trump did is that he got us over this politicians have to be perfect. And I'm not the biggest fan, but I can give credit for that. I think ultimately, once we get through this period, it will hopefully allow people to truly be themselves. But just it should matter the ideas that you have. Anyway, let's move on. I think we got away. So you've been talking to a lot of people. What are you hearing? Are things positive? Because I did see a post where someone said they're seeing an uptick, and there was a lot of supportive comments around that. That there people are also seeing an uptick in recruiting activity, recruiters being hired. Are you seeing that as well?
I am the less like I in the last week, I've done multiple digit calls with recruiters, and I have heard less more about hiring recruiters, and more that we need tools to help us because the demand is so high of us, like the demand on them. The demand's put on people, and that's why people
Okay,
are.
so they're being overloaded and
Yeah,
not
so
necessarily
that's
support.
a I guess that's a good thing, you know what I
But
mean?
this aligns with my theory that companies are cutting back to the bone, and then they're gonna overload their people and augment them with AI, and then at some point, they are going to learn that they need to hire more people, but they just will have more of a structure to hire those people into. I think
I
that's the
I would
logical
I I would say you nailed it. You hit the nail on the head there. I think,
so
you
that's
know,
probably 3 to 6 months, I would say. Because the thing
uh,
is we're moving at the AI speed, right? So that's the one variable that we don't know here is because the AI speed gonna allow an AI speed recovery, even though it seems like it's been forever.
oh, that's actually a good line. Is AI speaking gonna allow an AI recovery? Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we've had that sort of like accordion of jobs, like where it's breathed in and breathed out. Like we've seen people literally get hired, fired over the last 3 years, and tech has most certainly had a recession, like in all but name. Like whatever way people think about it, we've been in a recession in tech for over 2 years now. And, like, frankly, I think you're dead right. I think, like, at the end of the day, like, recruiters just been told do more with less, and we're gonna give you the AI tools to try and figure out how to make that happen. And then there'll be that precipice where there, like, frankly, is no more AI tools to test within the life cycle of hiring, and then that's when I would imagine that there will be additional headcount added back into companies because, like I said before, I had a call one time with recruiters, and there was, like, 3 of them for a 1,000-person business.
Hmm,
And I was like, if even if you're churning 10% of that business, that's a lot of recs to manage. That's a lot of interviews over the course of a year. You know what I mean? Yes. And they're like, yeah, we need this really badly. And I come back to
sure.
that 'cause I'm like, there's probably a lot of people, a lot of recruiters, the lucky ones that are actually working that are probably like being crushed, frankly, like with just the insane workloads that they're now having to deal with.
I did it in the past. It's rough. I've carried 50 recs. Realistically, there's 10 or 12 you're working on, and then you get to them when you get to them. But even I think there's AI recruiters coming out. I'm in favor of using those for low level, entry level type of positions. Get the data, make the decision, move on. It's not
Yeah.
rocket science. Do they align with your needs? They get the job done? Do you want to have them in your facility working?
Do you think that's like barbarians at the gate stuff? If you start using AI to do the first round interviews of like entry level positions, that ultimately it'll get to the point of doing all the interview.
No, because I think you can gather the initial data and then allow the recruiter to have a follow-up conversation where they pitch and they maybe do the behavioral questions where you need to probe.
Yeah.
And in
Oh,
in terms of building a relationship, but then you could have one recruiter working with an AI could maybe realistically support 100 recs with a high priority of 30
in a given year. Yeah, I would
like
think.
at a given time.
Yeah, at a given time, they would need to have the most optimized process
Well, that's
possible.
what we're getting to.
Yeah, like I think from a
We're not
comms,
there
like
yet, but that's it. Like recruiting operations is where it's at.
you mean if you think that would be a hot job for somebody that would be interested in
Like,
AI.
if you're a recruiter, I think
Yeah.
you would be looking into recruiting operations and thinking about what would my perfect system be, and then try to build it yourself.
Again, do you think a boutique firm could probably build that? Like somebody could just take it like the bull by the horns there and just go
You can build it in
recruitment
end to
first.
end.
Yes, you could build an end to end. But do you think like a large enterprise, like 3,000 person recruitment firm could do that?
It depends on how good their change management is and their leadership is. That's what it ultimately comes down to. Like, I think the sweetest thing for me about the AI revolution is the amount of disruption it's going to be on like people who've been taking rent and sitting in positions forever and not really innovating, just doing and keeping the thing running and maybe enjoying it a little bit too much.
Are you speaking about larger recruitment firms, executive search firms?
Even larger corporations. I've worked with recruiters who send the phone screen templates to candidates and have them fill it out.
Is that such a bad thing
And then
though?
get them on the phone and talk with them for 10 minutes and then push them through to the hiring manager. Just an absolute crap process. Crap.
Like how many more times can you say crap while I'm laughing?
Oh,
Like,
awful.
it's awful. And
Awful.
I mean, having an entire discussion about the recruitment process at the top of the funnel and optimizing it, I know is your bread and butter. And it's,
I love
I
it.
mean, it's,
I love it.
it's just like, that could be its own episode. It's like, We need to talk about the process of recruiting, like top to bottom. Like,
I'll
let's
tell
talk
you the
about
saddest
sourcing.
part. The saddest part is I have not had analytics in my platform for the last 5 years, and I have no historical data about how truly awesome we are.
Yeah. I bet what you're offering, you mean.
We still have all the data. We have, like, the finishing data, so we could probably have it infer from that. That's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, but that'll be changed soon. We're at 47 minutes. We've flown by. I think we can
Yeah.
kind of leave it at that. Mr. Alex Mann, always good to catch up with you. Thank you
Yeah,
all
man.
both for Talent Grind Live. We will not have a Talent Grind Live next. Maybe we will. I don't know. It depends. I'm coming in at 5 a.m. from Transform next Thursday. So we'll see
Oh.
how I feel about,
Oh, well, that could be a
yeah.
post-podcast, get it all down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, maybe it could be. Yeah, maybe I'll
like,
schedule one.
and
I'll
then yeah,
schedule one and maybe
let's
I'll do it
schedule.
and then I'll go to sleep. So
Yeah,
you
and then
can
we'll do it.
ping
I can
me.
do it in the morning. If it's 5, it's 8 for me, so we could just,
Right,
like
because I'm not getting a hotel room Wednesday night because my flight's at 5 a.m. on Thursday, so why even bother? I could just stay up all night.
yeah, and have a great time.
Or
Network.
I can actually, go to the ending show and do all that. Last year, David wanted to leave before all that, so we left. But yeah, it should be good. So I will be at Transform HR next week. If you see me, feel free to say hi, and thank you, Alex Mann, and have a great week. Bye.
Man, you're a legend. Have a good one.
Bye.